For the first time since Halloween and just the second time on Sunday, the New York Jets pick up a win on the road in Jacksonville. Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Sunday, December 15th. The New York Jets Week 15 matchup just concluded about 10 minutes ago at the time of this recording. And we're going to be breaking down all the action from today's win. This is episode 447 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. As always, appreciate all of you as well tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. The New York Jets played a football game today, and the New York Jets, like I mentioned, for the first time since Halloween, won a football game today. They improved to 4-10 on the season, 2-6 on the road. As for the Jacksonville Jaguars, they fall to 3-11 on the year and fall to 2-5 at home. And I'll be honest, this is weird. This is weird because I haven't made a recap video like this in a very long time. It's a weird feeling to win because this team hasn't won in a very long time. And I think all of us Jet fans understand where we're at in the season in terms of draft positioning, in terms of whether winning is the right thing, whether it's losing, all that stuff. I don't have to go down that whole road of whether or not they should win these games, whether or not they should lose these games, whether you're a fan rooting for wins, whether you're a fan rooting for losses. So it kind of feels weird. You know, the fan base is split. It was a win today against a very bad Jaguars team, and it was a win today that this team has not won many of these games at all this year. It was another one of these close games that came down to the final quarter, that came down to a couple late drives in the fourth quarter where Aaron Rodgers and this Jets offense were able to capitalize. And for the most part, the defense, that final drive there took advantage of some bad Mac Jones throws. Obviously, the Sauce interception, the first one since 2022. So everything about this one is just a little bit strange. You can make the case why this win helps. You can make the case why this win hurts. All that stuff. We all know where that is. And it's also one of these games that the Jets have not won many of these type of games this year, where it's close late in games. They were 0-5 in these games. A lot of these games, it came down to whether it was mistakes from an offensive perspective, missed kicks, not successful drives from Rodgers. We've seen the defense blow up much today. That wasn't the case. Late in the fourth, go into the fourth quarter, and the New York Jets put up 15 points. Jaguars put up 9, and they come away with a victory to get to 4 wins on the year. And they're only their second win on Sunday, which is crazy. This is the first time the Jets have won a game on Sunday since September. Week 2 against the Tennessee Titans. Crazy, because their other 2 wins came on Thursday night. So just the second time this season, the New York Jets have won a Sunday afternoon game since September 15th was their last one early in the year when we walked away from that Titans game thinking, man, maybe this team really has something. And here we are months later, December 15th, exactly 3 months later, in fact, from the last Jets win on a Sunday. We're talking about a completely different storyline. But they snapped their 4-game losing streak. Like I said, first win since October. This was really a game where it was kind of back and forth a little bit. The Jets went into halftime down 13-7. Jaguars dominated the time of possession in this one. And that was pretty embarrassing, to say the least, seeing Mac Jones, who went into this game 5-0 against the Jets in his career. So he falls now to 5-1. Jets get to 1-5 against Mac Jones now in his career. Who knew all it took was, I guess, him getting out of a Patriots uniform. But, man, Mac Jones stinks. There is so many throws today. And he did do some good things today, I'll admit. I did not expect him to go out there and do some of the things he did, especially from a rushing ability. So there were some moments where Mac Jones did some things. I think we all kind of know what the type of quarterback Mac Jones is in terms of a lot of short, quick passes. That's about it. You try and get him to throw deep. It doesn't work. He overthrows. He's got no accuracy deep down the field, doesn't have a huge arm. And you saw that a ton today. There was plenty of overthrows. There was plenty of opportunities for him and Brian Thomas Jr. at times to connect, and they were just off at times. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. had a big day, but there was at least 2 to 3 plays that Mac Jones left out there because of bad throws. But other than they got dominated in the time of possession, so that was pretty ugly. 34 minutes to 24 seconds for the Jaguars. The Jets only had the ball 25 minutes and 36 seconds, and that was really worse in the first half. The Jets played a much better second half in this one. 25 of their 32 points came in quarters 3 and 4. The Jaguars got outscored 25-12 in the second half. So the Jets, the time of possession definitely started to turn the Jets' way there in the second half. And I think that was more so just the Jaguars are, number one, Mac Jones isn't very good. But number two, on paper, the Jets are a more talented football team than the Jags. And I think that sort of just took over. As bad as the Jets have been, I said this in the preview pod yesterday, as bad as the Jets have been this season, as bad as the coaching has been, as bad as all that's been, this is a Jaguars team that lacks talent in many areas. They don't have a legitimate quarterback. And we know how this story goes with the Jets, where they find ways to win games late in the year that tend to, mess up their draft position. That's a lot of times what happens. The Jets now fall to 8. So they were at 7 going into today. They now fall to 8. That could certainly change here because there is still some more games that have to be played here. Jaguars now move into the top 5. They are now at number 4. So definitely a pretty sizable jump for them. Really only one spot, actually. They started the day at number 5. They move up now to number 4. Jets started the day at 7, move back 1 to 8. In terms of the offense for the Jets, look, I mean, it was a good day for Aaron Rodgers. You tell like you see it. It was. I mean, he played pretty well. There was some good. There was some, or not some good. There was some bad. Definitely, there was some missed throws. Mobility-wise, probably similar to Seattle, I would say, was probably the most mobile he's looked. I mean, I think you can make the case I think you can make the case today against Miami, and then week 3 have probably been his 3 best performances of the year. I mean, today, 3 touchdowns. I believe it's just the second time this year he's hit 3 touchdowns in a game. The other came against Houston, and that was really only a one-half performance. Now, today was sort of a one-half performance. First half was pretty dead. They barely had the ball. He had 3 completions in the first half, and that really wasn't on the offense. It was more so the defense. It felt very similar to the San Francisco game in week 1, where the offense just could not possess the football because the defense was out there for hours. That's what it felt like. You look at some of the Jacksonville drives in the first half, 13 plays, 18 plays, 11 plays. Ridiculous. And Jacksonville, too, all those drives, a lot of them they couldn't finish. The Jets are playing a very bend but don't break type defense today. Jacksonville was getting into the red zone, could not finish drives. If they finish one more of those drives, we're talking about a completely different ball game than a 32-25 victory here for the Jets. But Rodgers finished 16 of 30, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 120 passer rating. I feel like you can't talk about Aaron Rodgers if you don't talk about Davante Adams. It was a huge day for him. This was by far Davante Adams' best game as a Jet. This was by far Davante Adams' best game this season, and one of his best games in a while. I mean, it was a huge day for Davante. 9 catches, 198 yards, 2 touchdowns, had the huge 71-yard touchdown. And I'll be honest, this is what stings about this whole season and all that stuff is, and just about the game today. Like, even with the win, you're not very excited as a Jet fan because they're 4-10. The win doesn't mean anything really. Especially when you look at the big picture, draft positioning is more important at this point. But the whole Davante Adams thing, like that 71-yard touchdown was beautiful. Beautiful. It was a great ball from Rodgers. Put it right into the breadbasket. Davante finished it with the grab and the yak. And all you can do is you can't help but think, man, what if that was happening if this team was not even just, I don't even just want to sit here and say they were 10-3. What if that would happen if this team was even just 7-6, right? If they were even just still in the fight, maybe even 6-7, where you still had a fighting chance to, hey, you know what? Maybe you win your Final Four, you get in, who knows? Maybe you get in with 9, whatever, Broncos start falling off, whatever. You get the point. what that would feel like. That's what we all hoped for. And here we are, 3-10. We get a vintage, probably the best Rodgers to Davante Adams connection that we'll see this season. And you really can't even enjoy it because the team's 3-10. You know the big picture implications on the game today. But that's just the life of a Jet fan. That's just the disappointment. It's like you see a play like that, it's great play, but at the same time, you're thinking to yourself, man, like we're 3-10. It's tough to get excited about plays that happen when the team is 3-10. But it was still a very good play. It was still a very impressive play. And if it, that's just the way it is. No matter how mad or upset you can be about this team this year, you can't deny the game that Davante Adams had today. You can't deny some of the plays that Rodgers was able to make to him today. The catch down the sideline was an amazing catch. And those are just that's just what you saw today. Like there's nothing else to that. He was excellent today. Davante Adams was dominant. You just wish you could have awesome play. You wish you could have, that could have happened when this team was still in it, or could be happening when this team is still fighting for a spot. But it is what it is. That's where we are right now with this Jets team. So Davante, huge day, 198 yards, 2 touchdowns. Garrett Wilson also had a solid game, 56 yards, 1 touchdown. You saw him on the sideline, a little upset, definitely. A lot of emotion, obviously. We know how Garrett is. Lots of emotion. Really, wants to win. Looked like he was frustrated on the 1 3rd down where Rodgers got sacked, where he was one-on-one, wanted the ball. Rodgers couldn't get it to him. Ruckert also looked a little open. So just a unfortunate play as a whole from the perspective that Rodgers probably maybe held on to the ball. I would have to go back and watch it again, but Rodgers probably held on to the ball maybe for a little too long, ended up taking the sack. But Garrett did have the touchdown today. So Davante and Garrett last 2 weeks, really big days. You had 2 100-yard games from those two guys last week. And then you had, 198 yards from Davante this week and a 56-yard game from Garrett, but they both had a touchdown. All 3 of them, they combined for 3 of the 4 Jets touchdowns, the 4th coming from Breece Hall, which was, a controversial move in the moment, whether or not to just juice the clock, kick the field goal, or score and give the ball back to Jacksonville with a minute left and 2 timeouts to go down and score. But Garrett and Davante the last 2 weeks have been a very, very lethal 1-2 punch. Very lethal 1-2 punch. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I think that's part of the reason why you've seen Aaron Rodgers' numbers the last 2 weeks look the way they've been, because both those guys have been very, very impressive. Getting open, making plays, making some really tough catches. Davante today, like we said, some really, really tough grabs that he was able to make. I know the play down the sideline was probably the highlight play of the day from like a toughness catch standpoint. And then you also, of course, the 71-yard play is the highlight. But from a tough catch standpoint, it was the one on that sideline on 3rd down as well. 2 big 3rd down plays from Davante today. The run game, I feel like it was kind of to be expected. It hasn't been very good this year. It's been very, streaky at points. And I think the run game was kind of as expected when you came into this game and you looked at what the Jets were dealing with. You could tell Breece was not going to have a very good game today. Not because anything he's done this year. He's not 100%. The way the Jets have done things this year, they haven't given him the ball a ton. They haven't run the ball a ton. I know when you look at the Jets run game as a whole, yeah, they had 125 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, but 21 of those came on a Ashton Davis fake punt, which, by the way, Ashton Davis, special teams fake punt legend. That guy is like a special teams ace when it comes to fake punts. And also 45 of those came from the legs of Aaron Rodgers. So when you look at the actual running backs today, Isaiah Davis had 24 yards, Breece Hall had 30, and Braylon Allen had 5 prior to leaving to injury. So really not a big day when you look at the running back perspective. Davis did have 4.8 yards per attempt on his 24 runs. 11 of those did come in 1 run. So after that, he technically had 4 carries for 13 yards after that. So overall, not a big day. I know when you look at the overall body of work from the Jets run game, you say, man, 125 yards, 5.4 yards per attempt. That's really good. When you break it down, 21 of those came on the fake punt. Rodgers also picked up, some with his legs. And really the running backs as a whole were not really much of a factor. Rodgers threw the ball 30 times today. Now, Breece Hall, the touchdown, very much debated. If Jacksonville would have went down and scored, it would be much more of a talking point. I think the smart thing to do there is, just juice the clock, let Jacksonville burn both their timeouts, run it down to, who knows, maybe like 30, 25 seconds, whatever, however much they could have gotten it down to, probably something like that. And then kick the field goal and then give the ball back to Jacksonville with like 20 seconds left, 15 seconds left, no timeouts, and force them to have to pick up, off the kickoff, probably about 45 yards or so in like 15 seconds to get a field goal. So that's probably the smart thing to do. They go in and score. Realistically, this is what I kind of came to. Sitting there watching the game, this was my whole thought process on it. And I know this Jets defense is bad, but Mac Jones is terrible. If you can't stop Mac Jones with a minute left and 2 timeouts, then you don't deserve to win the game anyway. You just don't. So we can criticize the decision, and believe me, it's bad clock management. If this game actually meant something for like a playoff, and if this was actually a 10-3 Jets team that was still fighting for a 1 seed or whatever, fighting for the division, and they needed this game, and they did that, I would be furious. I think all Jets fans would be furious. In the moment, you would not understand why you don't just wait, juice the clock, kick the chip shot field goal, and pretty much put the game to bed, bearing a miracle. But where they're at in the season, they decide to score. In the back of my mind, I knew Mac Jones was not going to go down and score, even as bad as the Jets have been this year. There are throws that Mac Jones will make, and it's just, you just got to scratch your head. And again, he didn't play terrible today, but the 2 interceptions were awful throws. Now, the one was essentially a punt to Jalen Mills, but the other, the final one to Sauce, he threw it he overthrew the guy by like 5 yards. And there was multiple instances today. Most of his incompletions are all overthrows to receivers that are relatively open. So that's what I ultimately came to, just sitting there watching that game as a numb Jets fan, because we're all broken, is look, if this team can't stop Mac Jones, all you're going to do is sit there and laugh and say to yourself, this team has no business winning that game anyway. As bad as the defense has been, you should not have a problem stopping Mac Jones under 2 minutes. And Mac Jones did them a favor, really, because they were marching a little bit, and then Mac Jones just airmailed and threw it right into Sauce Gardner's arms. And I guess that's where we can start from defense. So that was the offense perspective. I guess that's where you could start with the defensive perspective is, 2 interceptions today. The Jets went into this game with 2 interceptions on the season. Brandon Echols had both of them. And the Jets went into this game with 2 picks on the year. They haven't had a pick in the Jeff Ulbrich era. They walk away today with 2 interceptions. Robert Saleh was still the coach the last time the Jets got an interception. So it was definitely a change today to see the Jets actually pick the ball off. Jalen Mills, like I said, both of them were very, and not trying to be some grumpy, negative Jet fan, but look, the reality is both interceptions were nothing special. I think Jalen Mills, he tracked it down pretty well. He was kind of like a center fielder, like they said on the broadcast. As for Sauce, that was like him just catching a jugs machine. That was thrown right to him. They weren't anything crazy, but they're interceptions, and they're not something the Jets do. Sauce with his first interception since week 9 of 2022. I was in attendance for that game. That was the Jets-Bills game. The Jets won that game. Sauce actually had a huge game. He had the big pass breakup late in the game on Gabe Davis. That was the game where the Jets won to get to 6-3. Zach had a solid game. He actually played better than Josh that game. And we all thought Zach was manageable. They went into the bye, and then we all know what happened next. They came out of the bye, and that was the New England disaster where they lost 10-3, the whole punt and return. We don't have to go down that road. But that was the last time Sauce got a pick. Last time he got a pick was it's been a whole 2 years. And the crazy part is he's dropped some easy ones. So he needed that one today you could not drop that pick because he had that one in London against Minnesota in the end zone, which could have completely changed the game, where he dropped it and it was right in his lap, literally right in his lap. He had his knees on the ground and it hit right in his chest and it rolled down his body. So Sauce needed to get on the board for a pick. It was a matter. It took too long, but he got an interception. It's been a whole 2 years. He went a whole season without one. Almost went a whole season without one here. So he gets an interception. Jalen Mills gets an interception. I'll admit, Jalen Mills he's been solid. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back as a depth guy next year. They need to do a complete overhaul in the safety room. No doubt about that. It continues to be a problem. But Jalen Mills has been, for a guy that came in here middle of the season, was with the Giants practice squad this year and was released off the Giants. For a guy that, has bounced around a little bit here recently, was once really, really good, of course, in Philly. Had a couple good seasons in New England. But for a guy that was on the Giants practice squad, got released. I think he was on another practice squad as well. He's been solid. And wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back depth guy. He can't be your starting safety next year. They need to do a complete overhaul at that position, like I said. But those are your 2 interceptions today. In terms of pass rush stuff, Solomon Thomas had a sack. Kinlaw had a sack. I thought they credited the 1 sack to Will McDonald, but I guess they credited it to Kinlaw. So Kinlaw does something, I guess. He stinks. Solomon Thomas had the sack late in the game. That was about it. Pass rushing wise, Hassan Reddick had a penalty. He stinks. Hassan Reddick had a penalty today. He didn't do anything. He stinks. And the fact that Ulbrich during the week was talking about, how the Jets, or was talking about how Hassan Reddick has been everything the Jets expected him to be. Everything they watch on film is exactly the player they brought him in to be. I'm like, what? What? First of all, his pressures are down. It's not even like his pressures. It's not even like Reddick's getting to the quarterback. He's not even getting to the quarterback. And it would be one thing if he was pressuring the quarterback and was just not finishing. He's not even getting anywhere around the quarterback. So that on top of the lack of sacks, he's done nothing since becoming a Jet. Nothing at all. So, and he didn't do anything again today. Not a thing he did today. Nothing. So, I figured I'd say that about Reddick. Sherwood, he's been very good, but man, that was embarrassing. Mac Jones spin moving him and him completely biting on that was embarrassing. Mac Jones had a couple plays today where, as a Jet fan, you were just disappointed. Not angry or anything like that. You were just disappointed. Like you were watching Mac Jones have some success in the first half against this defense, especially from a running ability as well. Like he was making some of these Jets defenders look a little silly. He made Jamian Sherwood look really, really silly. Really silly. Falling for a Mac Jones spin move is a pretty bad look. So, look, we know where this defense is. It's regressed a ton. They picked Mac Jones off twice, but the fact that they let Mac Jones throw for 294, 2 touchdowns, and had some of the run plays that he did, it's not the same group. They didn't get enough pressure. We know what it is. We know where this defense stands. They had the 2 picks at least. But that was about it. I thought Stiggers, for the most part, was good. Quincy Williams had the one nice pass breakup. That was about it from a defensive perspective. Not a whole lot. And it had the 2 turnovers. That was pretty much it. Special teams, you had the fake punt. First drive, Jets went 3 and out. Then they faked it. And then it turned into a 7-play, 70-yard drive. First opening drive touchdown, I believe, of the season for the Jets. So that was something that we haven't seen in a while, something that we haven't seen all year that happened today. Actually, both teams scored opening drive touchdowns, which is crazy. Again, I say this all the time. on paper, when you watch, you say to yourself, man, 2, 3, and 10 teams, this is going to be awful. A lot of times, these games between two bad teams are usually entertaining because they're so bad that they make each other look good. I've said that a ton. Like this game, I had a feeling, you know what? This is going to be somewhat entertaining. And you knew it right off the bat. When both teams scored on their first drive, I'm thinking to myself, it's two defenses that aren't good. It's two offenses that aren't very good either. But usually it's the bad offenses that usually end up taking over. And here we are. We were treated by a 30-point game. That's another thing, too, to note in this one. The Jets, first time this season, the Jets have scored 30 points in a game. All year, the Jets have talked about hitting 30. Magic number is 30. Well, they hit 30, and they're 1-0. So I guess Rodgers can carry that with him. You could say, all year I've been saying we need to hit 30. They hit 30, and they're 1-0 in games where they score 30 points. And that was today. So 3 games left on the year. Rams next week, Bills, Dolphins. I don't see us winning another game. I don't see us beating the Rams. I definitely don't see us beating the Bills. First of all, this team doesn't go into Buffalo and win. They haven't done that since 2019. Second of all, the Bills right now at the time of this recording are winning 14-0 over the Lions. And I need to watch and see what actually has happened so far in that game. But all I know is the Bills are dominating early in that game. So you're talking about the Bills potentially going on the road and beating the Lions. The Rams, the Jets got to play. The Rams put up 40 against the Bills. They found a way to win against the Niners. Wasn't pretty, but they found a way. The Rams are rolling, really well-coached team that we're not beating them. So I don't see us beating the Rams or the Bills. Today, I think we said many for the people that were rooting for the tank. Today was a big game from that perspective of you lose today, there's a good chance this team falls to 3-14 and potentially get a top 5 pick. You win today, there's a good chance they probably get to 4-13. So we'll see where the chips fall at the end. And I always say this, look, I see both sides of it. I think as Jets fans, you're kind of worn down at times of watching this team year in and year out and then seeing them winning meaningless games that ultimately tanks draft position. But at the end of the day, whoever your GM is, they've got to find talent. If you're a GM, you got to find talent wherever you're picking. Whether you're picking second, whether you're picking fifth, whether you're picking 1, picking 8, wherever the heck you're picking, the general manager needs to make the right pick. They need to find the right talent. So that's the reality. It's the reality. You could be picking number 1 and make the wrong pick. You got to make the right pick at the end of the day. So we'll see if the Jets do that. But Rams coming up next, then on the road in Buffalo, then back at home against Miami. Miami could be a game I see them winning, especially if Miami's out of it. Now, if Miami's got a chance to have that game be like a win and in somehow, some way, then maybe I could see a world, although I believe Miami did lose. Miami did lose today, so they're pretty much it. They're over. They're done. So take that back, what I just said there. That Miami game might be a win. Miami stinks in the cold. The Jets almost beat them in Miami. They're not very good. They're going to be out of it at that point. So maybe they'll win that game. Just get them to 5 wins, but that's about it. I don't see this win spurring them into a 7-10 record. I don't. I think at best they're 5-12, but realistically, this is probably a 4-13 team. They beat a terrible Jaguars team. So Jets win. December Jets football, man. It stinks. You can't really get excited about wins because just where we're at. So that'll do it. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Takeaways from this performance. We'll be back tomorrow, as always, for our day after podcast. And we'll have a lot of content the rest of the week. So stay tuned. Appreciate you all so much. Until next time, JETS, Jets.